Hey, what's up, guys? You're listening to the It Takes a Village podcast. I'm Ashley, your host. This is where the struggles are real, the callings are heavy, the kids are sticky. We come together because it takes a village, and this is your tribe. Hey, what's up, guys? I'm excited to have you listening today because today I'm starting a new series for the It Takes a Village podcast, and it's called Marriage Full Disclosure. It's going to be me and my husband. Say hi, husband.
Hi.
We're going to be talking about controversial marriage topics, common marriage topics, like what were some of the questions that we were going to...
Can you still be friends with the opposite sex?
Yeah, I was talking about like other ones, like examples
okay.
of what we're talking about.
Can you go on trips, friend trips?
Without your spouse? Can you have single friends? Stuff like that. So we're going to be covering lots of topics, getting real with each other, and that probably means that I'm going to have to do a lot of editing because I have no idea. I have no idea how these are going to go. So today's topic we're going to be talking about, or today's common marriage question is, can you have friends of the opposite sex? Okay, so can you be friends with the opposite sex? Babe, what do you think?
Oh, you're just going to throw it to me right off the bat?
Yeah.
So I think the first thing you have to do is define what is a friend and what kind of activities would you do with a friend?
Yeah. When we were looking up these questions, I was kind of blown away at one of the topics, or one of the common questions or something for spouses was, can you have a work husband or a work wife? Like a friend that you confide in. Just the fact that it's called work wife or work husband, I don't think is a good idea.
I would agree.
So like if I think that having a relationship probably with the opposite sex is okay, as long as you're not telling them or going to them complaining about your spouse. Like you're not talking about your issues, you're not confiding in them in the things that you should be telling your spouse.
Yeah.
Because I think that's when the line gets shady, and then...
Well, I was listening to a podcast, I forget which one, but they were talking about that there's this marriage counselor that a study that they read and said, as soon as you go to someone of the opposite sex to complain about your wife or, your husband or whatever, your significant other, so that if you start to confide in someone of the opposite sex, that you're automatically open the door for infidelity because you're confiding in that person, telling them the things that you should be talking to your wife about. And that, I think, is really dangerous, slippery slope.
Do you have friends of the opposite sex?
So I have people that I'm friendly with that are of the opposite sex, but I'm not going to go up to someone from the opposite sex and say, like, hey, let's go grab a beer. Let's go grab a drink. Let's go get, so for me, I think, and even outside of, if you're not crossing any of those boundaries as far as what we just talked about, complaining about your spouse to that person, like, in the world that we live in, if somebody else sees that, then what do they think about your marriage, and is that honoring you? That's
how rumors get spread, guys.
Yeah. And so for me, like, the way I think about it is, like, in a given situation, does it honor you?
Yeah.
In what other people may perceive, whether they're right or wrong, like, obviously that doesn't matter, but I want to honor you and put you first.
Yeah. This is a really touchy subject. Do you remember that when we were first married? This is like a really, so I think
not
it's
really
funny
when we were first married, but like when we were first, like when we were together before we were married.
Engaged.
Yeah, I think so.
So I think it's
all
funny
that's
our first episode for us to talk about the thing that came up a lot. So why do you think that it was such a big deal for us then, and it was something that honestly we fought about a lot, and then now?
Because I think that especially in today's society, we're told, like, do what makes you feel good, and be free, and like all these things.
Like you can have everything. You can be this, and well, maybe that's the wrong.
Well, it's not even that, but it's like, it's okay to do what you want to do. And so for me, I think this is a question of, do you want to be proactive about protecting your marriage, or do you not want to be proactive about, like, that's where, you know, if you're single, obviously it's not a big deal because what you do does not affect another person.
Right.
When you're dating, I think that even that's you don't know if you're going to be with this person forever. But like, once you make a commitment that you're going to be with this person forever, like, marriage is hard. Like, there's a lot of ups and downs. And if you're not being diligent about that and about your marriage and protecting the union that you have, and looking to honor your spouse, and you're not thinking forward about that, then it's easy to drift and, you know, talk to someone of the opposite sex and have a conversation that you would have when you were single or when you were dating.
Well, then you get in the dangers of connecting with that person instead of, like, you're spending all this time pouring into this friend or telling them all the things that you should be pouring into your spouse, whether it's like things that you're worried about or things that you're excited about. There's a connection happening between you and your friend and not you and your spouse.
And if you're creating that emotional connection like, just like our relationship started out was over the phone and writing each other back and forth. While I was still in Iraq, before we ever met each other face to face, we had an emotional connection. And so obviously we see what happened because we already had an emotional connection. You know, and so it happened so quickly. So if you are creating those emotional connections with other people of the opposite sex, and then you start confiding in them things you should be confiding in your marriage with, then, I mean, that gets really dangerous really fast.
FYI, guys, we had a baby 6 months after meeting.
I mean, there's a marriage, like, it takes 9 months to have a baby.
Oh, yeah. But I'm saying, like, within 6 months of us being together, we got pregnant, right? Because you were talking about, like, you were saying, like, how fast our emotional bad connection.
With time.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and establish that now for anybody listening. So we met in March.
Right.
And our theory is it's probably July 4th.
Woo!
So
fireworks, guys. Yeah. It's real.
So about 4 months. Yep.
Oh, okay. Way shorter than I was thinking. Anyways, but for women like me or even men, I think that one of the things that we struggle with too is I came into our relationship with a lot of guy friends, or in particular, like,
and vice versa.
Right. That's what I'm saying, is that a lot, like, some couples come together and they just they have really tight-knit groups of girlfriends. Like, there's women that have a lot of girlfriends and no, like, real deep friendships with men, and, like, men who come to relationships that have a lot of guy, you know, friends. But, like, us in particular, we just had really good connections with, you know, a particular friend of the opposite sex. And so when we were first together, I think we really struggled with how to honor that friendship, something that we held on to for so long that meant something to us, but at the same time honor our marriage. And we would conflict about that, of, like, letting those people go and finding the right boundaries. And so I'm bringing it up because I want to speak to those people that are kind of come at this with the perspective of women who have guy friends that are really close, that have been in their lives for a long time, or men who have friends that are women that have been, like, how do you then have that or balance that or figure that out into your marriage?
And at the flip side of this, like, if you're just dating and you're not going to be with each other forever, then
it's not a big deal.
Why are you going to bail out on friends that you've known for years?
Right.
And for someone that may not even be in your life in, 3 months. And so, and that's the way I always looked at it. And even in the beginning, when we were starting to get more serious, like, I didn't want to be the person that bailed on friends. But at the same time, like, once you cross that boundary of we're going to be together for life and ride or die, then you have to start making concessions for your spouse. Like,
for like the long term.
well, yeah, like I'm going to treat you differently than a girlfriend or a girl that I'm dating,
Yeah.
you know, when I'm 20 years old.
So like lunches with your guy friend or girlfriend when you're married, yes or no?
Repeat the question.
Like going on a lunch with
Yeah.
your guy friend, or for you, your like friend that's a girl.
So friend of the opposite sex.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes or no when you're married?
When you're married, I think that's a bad idea. That's something that I avoid. And again, this is actually a pretty taboo thing. Like the vice president got called out a few months ago for saying, like, I will not go to dinner with somebody of the opposite sex. And then when you talk about like, you know, gender equality and all that.
Right. Like women that have friends that are gay, like that's okay. That seems to be more okay than if your wife has a straight male friend, right?
I mean, yeah, and so like that's kind of to me a one-off example. And I do think that is probably different.
Yeah. Because you have less of a reason to worry, I guess.
Well, it's like if you're protecting your marriage, like
yeah,
that's the whole point. Like, is somebody making it? And even then, I would say with that person, you probably want to have different conversations with that person than you would with a very, very close friend of the same gender. Mm-hmm. Because like if you're going, so like we talk about home groups and being part of our church. Like if you're having some type of struggle in your marriage and you need guidance, that's something that you can seek out from somebody else who also has a wife who may be having those same struggles.
But I wouldn't reach out to the husband.
No.
Yeah. Like as a couple, we would reach out to other friends. Is that
right.
what you're saying?
Or I would reach out to the husband.
Right.
And say like, hey, like me and Ashley are struggling in this area. Is that something that you've ever dealt with? And again, like even having those conversations, you want to make sure that person is extremely trusted.
Yeah.
And for you would reach out to the wife,
right,
and say, hey, have you ever, but you know, you're not going to have that same conversation with, you know,
right,
a guy who's gay, because their relationship's going to look different. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like there are stark differences between men and women on how we think, how we feel,
how we react,
how we communicate.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to have, and every couple's different, and not every woman on the face of the earth is the same, and not every man on the face of the earth is the same, but there are similarities to where if you need guidance on how to come to me about an issue or a feeling that you're having, you know, our marriage has benefited greatly because we were in a small group when we were, you know, even before we were engaged.
Yeah.
And learning from Chad and Deanne.
They were on, which Deanne was on the first episode of this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chad married us.
Yeah.
And so seeing the example that they were, and, you know, I think they're probably at 30 years or close to 30 years of marriage now, and, you know, have 2 daughters that they have raised up, and I mean, just really what you would want your kids to turn out to be, then yeah, like they were an example of that for us. And I looked at it as like, okay, I want my marriage to look like theirs 30 years from now.
Yeah. So I think it's safe to say though that like if you have other couple friends and you as a couple are close friends with other couples to where it's like their husband is my friend too, like the wife and the husband are both my friends, but I don't seek out the husband or I don't seek out the male to like hang out, like we're always hanging out as a group.
Yeah.
Where it's like couples to couples.
Was it the show that we were watching the other day, I'm Sorry?
I have a bad memory.
they were planning a play date for the kids.
Oh, yeah.
And then
No.
It was
that
a
what
pool.
it was?
Yeah, it was at one of the couple's houses.
This show is so funny. I love this show. The mom is like my favorite character. She's my spirit animal.
They were having a pool party, and it was supposed to be...
It was a play date. It was a play date for their kids, and it was a pool party, and it was supposed to be...
Both couples.
Both couples. Like the wife and the husband and their daughter were going to this other couple's house that their daughters went to school together. And when the wife shows up, like the husband couldn't come because of a work thing. So the wife was like, okay, just meet us later. And then she shows up, and then the husband answers the door and was like, yeah, my wife couldn't come, or she had to go to work or something. And so then it was just like the husband of one couple with his daughter, and then the wife and her daughter. And it was like they had to go swimming, and she
like
felt really awkward
Yeah.
getting in her bikini, and it was just like her and this other man and his kid, and it was hilarious.
The funny part about that show is like, it's the writer, the star, and the director of the show, and I forget her name, but she runs it. Like, obviously it's a very, from a political standpoint, liberal, socially progressive show, and they're tackling this exact same topic in a way that it's really, really awkward. And you would think that from that perspective or standpoint that they would be like, yeah, like this is totally normal, like this should be fine, and it's obviously not. And so
Andrea Savage, is that her name? Andrea something.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Andrea Savage. She's a comedian.
And the show is great, and it's funny, and like we both enjoy it, which is rare because usually if it's my show, you hate it, or vice versa. But
okay, so to wrap this episode up,
have we just been like mumbling?
Yeah, we're just rambling.
Yeah.
I feel like it's gonna make a lot of couples, or I feel like this is one of those topics that there are probably women listening who have guy friends that they text. Maybe, I don't know. And my fear is that we're pissing them off right now.
Well, I mean, and I think every marriage is different.
Yeah.
And so.
I mean, they're like.
I don't think it's a black and white topic.
Right. For instance, I have a guy friend who I am best friends with.
Yeah.
But as the years have gone, I think that we've disconnected, or I have put the boundaries in place of like, okay, now I'm married, we can hang out, but when you want to come over my husband's home, when you want, like, let's go out as a group, let's meet up and eat lunch as a group. And I think also making sure that you've met him, you know him, like other things like that, like.
And again, it's just about being proactive and how we approach, and it's not that there's anything.
And also that you have strong trust in your marriage. Like
for sure,
there has to be trust. And if there's been like situations that made you uncomfortable in the past, like don't even go there. Like I think that's what, like you said, for each relationship, it's not just black and white. There are things that you have to take into account all the way around to say, is this the right choice for us?
Yeah, I think those conversations change.
Right,
like I have friends that I've been friends with for longer than I've known you.
Yeah.
And the conversation that I would have had with that person before you, or even in the early days of you, are not the conversations that I would have now.
Yeah.
You know? And so, like, also, like, let's be completely candid. Like, if you have friends of the opposite sex, like, more than likely there's some flirtation there. Even if you don't expect anything to ever happen, like even if it's just flirty banter, and like once you cross over and you're like, okay, like
that's
I
true.
am married to Ashley, she is my wife, ride or die for the rest of our lives. And if I really want to protect that and really want that to be the case, then I have to treat all other relationships, you know. And what's your view of marriage? Like in our view of marriage, like two become one, right? And you know, however old school or traditional or dated, you know, it sounds like we take our view of marriage from the Bible. Yeah. And if two become one, and you truly believe that, then that means that your relationships around you have to change as well. And that's not always comfortable. Like sometimes that's uncomfortable.
Yeah, and we really struggled with it. Like, we're not saying it was an easy conversation. This is like we're talking.
Yeah, we've been together for almost a decade now.
Okay.
She's saying years because she's so bad with time that she doesn't know how many years we've been together.
That's why I have a plaque
Yeah.
that tells me the date that we got married.
So in May, we will have been married for 7 years.
Right.
But
We've been together.
Been together for 10 years.
Yeah.
Once we hit March, essentially. And that date's easy to remember for me because we just take the age of our daughter plus 1 year.
I like how you're telling me this. He's like staring at me like, this is how you do it.
No, I'm not saying.
This makes.
I just think it's
this
a
is why
funny.
you should know.
No, I'm just trying to bring it full circle from the beginning of the podcast
gotcha,
of like.
It happened. Things happen fast, guys.
Yeah, plus 9 months, and then so that equals a year, just about.
Okay, so to close it up, basically, it's not black and white. I think each couple has to do what is right for your own marriage, given your background, the things that you've gone on in your personal marriages. Is that an area that is an area of strength, or is that an area that has been in question before? Can you feel confident? Like, can you feel, what is it like? You know, like when your spouse is away or meeting with somebody, like, are you going to be jealous? Is that the word I'm looking for? Or like secure? Like, do you have that secure feeling? Like, as if you're gonna be insecure, then that's gonna cause friction. Like, you're saying, yes, it's okay if you go, but then you're blowing up their phone and like, come home right now. What are you doing? What are you guys talking about? Like, then obviously it's not okay.
I think the first question is, are you honoring your spouse?
Yeah.
And are you protecting your marriage? Like, are you being proactive in that to where you're not ever opening the door or giving,
right,
even giving the chance or image to somebody outside of your marriage? Yeah. Like, what happens if you go and you're having dinner with somebody of the opposite sex and then you run into somebody from work?
Yeah.
And then like, oh, hey, this isn't my wife, this is my friend.
Yeah.
You know, and so like when I think of going out to dinner with somebody, for one, I'm probably not even going out to dinner with a guy. Like, if there's something we need to talk about or maybe a business meeting or something, then, you know, it's like, hey, let's go get a drink and maybe we go somewhere where we have dinner or an appetizer or whatever. But, you know, I try to be home as much as possible.
Like, it's not a sit down thing.
Yeah. You know, so yeah, I think it's a slippery slope no matter the way you cut it.
Yeah.
Like once you make that commitment, and it's different again, like when you're just dating, because you don't want to just bail on all your friends when you're dating.
Yeah, I did that. I went down that road, and that was not fun.
And I don't even think you should really bail on friends when you get married.
No, definitely not. But it's
just the conversations have to change. Like relationships have to change, like regardless. Mm-hmm. And for me, even like, especially if it's something you don't feel comfortable with, if I just dismiss that, then I'm not honoring you. Mm-hmm. You know, so. And
maybe this is a question that you should talk about with whoever it is you're dating, because if, I don't know, like I just feel like that's something that you should kind of approach together. Like,
I would guess that most of your listeners are already married.
Well, yeah, I'm just throwing it out there.
But yeah, like
anyway.
if you aren't married already, then I think it is definitely a good conversation to have beforehand. Mm-hmm. Like it's wise. Like you're making a lifelong commitment. Like if you're not willing to give certain stuff up for your marriage or for your spouse, then you should probably not marry that person.
Yeah. But it also doesn't mean that you have to lose
probably
yourself.
Pissed a bunch of people.
Yeah, but that isn't, which is why I'm saying like I think then when you say that, what comes to mind is like, oh, well, when I get married, like I just have to stop being me, or like I just have to, stop this. But I think that's not what we're saying.
Again, like I think that the first two questions are like, how do you define marriage, mm-hmm. and how do you define a friend?
Yeah.
Like there are plenty of people that I'm friendly with.
Right, friendly.
Yeah, but there's not like, especially being in real estate, like I come in contact with plenty of people from the opposite sex and plenty of people.
Right.
And so whether, especially different business situations in a industry that's considered very social, mm-hmm. like I'm not going and saying, hey, let's go grab drinks with somebody of the opposite sex where it's just me and them.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of people that I would say, yeah, like they're a good friend. But that doesn't mean that I'm confiding things about you, or if we're having, a season that's rough or whatever the case may be. Cause like all marriages have that. Like marriage is hard. Like if it was so easy, then divorces wouldn't be so prevalent. Like
that's true.
even if you talk about, to me, the definition of marriage is a whole nother conversation. Cause you talk about even within the Christian church, like you see the divorce rate the same or more as the regular population. So, are those people being proactive about protecting their marriage? And I would say no. And so if you want to leave
the door open, like
or
even
leave it
if
up to
it's a
chance.
crack, right? Like if there's a crack, stuff is gonna get through.
Right.
Yeah.
So like if you want to leave your marriage up to chance, then and want to roll the dice, go for it. But based off of what we believe about marriage, like we want to be proactive and protect that, and not even.
And I think it's just human nature, like the way that we react with the opposite sex. Like some things happen without us even realizing that it, like being flirty, like we don't really realize that that's what we're doing. Like you used to tell women sweetheart all the time.
Yeah.
And I would be like, no, you cannot do that. You call every woman sweetheart. Like, I mean,
But it was so endearing.
Oh my God. Anyways,
but yeah,
it's a Southern thing. Like it's different if like an older man calls a younger girl like, oh, thanks, sweetheart, or like. But this is, I don't know. It just rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know if that was helpful at all.
Well, no, like so I think that's a really good point. Is because I know for me, for sure, like friendships where nothing ever happened or were ever gonna happen. Like I had very flirty friendships with
women.
Yeah. Like from the time that I can remember from having friendships with women, like it was always a very flirty.
Yeah. Because I think that's just the way that we act with each other naturally.
Maybe not. Like maybe that's not everybody, but that was me for sure.
Yeah.
I don't act like that now with.
That's
I
true.
don't call anybody sweetheart now.
I know, so that will kill you.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I guess that's true because I wasn't really flirty with like the guy friends that I had. For me, I think it was more of like. I didn't have any siblings or any connections, so like when
but you would probably confide in them, I imagine. Like you would probably have
like
conversations.
Brotherly, yeah. Like, well, I mean, I would even talk to them about other people that I was dating, which yeah.
Which when you're just dating them, like I think that's okay.
Right, because they're telling, like you also don't know their motives of like, are they hoping you break up? Like, are they hoping to where if they're giving you advice. It can lead you in
what
either
is it
direction.
like the most famous rom-com ever, My Best Friend's Wedding? Like she secretly loves him the whole time.
Yeah. And he's like confiding in her. I don't remember how that goes exactly.
I never saw the movie. Somebody was talking about it on a podcast the other day and it reminded me of it.
Okay.
But it's go ahead. Yeah, anyways.
No, we're good. So.
How long is this episode?
28 minutes. So it's gone
That's
on way
bad.
too long. Way too long.
Just a tip for anybody who listens to this podcast, if you do double speed, you can still hear everything because your brain will catch up.
No.
Ashley's shaking her head over here. That's how I listen to podcasts now because I'm addicted to podcasts.
Yeah, so when you go to your podcast app, there's like a 1x, a 2x, a 3x, and basically it'll speed up how fast you're hearing the podcast. And so it sounds like this is normal
only like a 15-minute episode if you do that.
Yeah, if you speed it up, then we'll start talking like this, and it'll be really, really fast, but you'll hear a lot of it in a short amount of time. So he's saying he can do that. I can't listen to it. Maybe if I got used to it, I could, but it goes way
At first,
I
thought I couldn't, and then I started doing 1.5 speed, and then once I listened to that, then I was like, oh, this isn't that bad. And then I did 2 speed. Yeah. And then that's how I listened.
And now our daughter has asked me to put her episode on. Anyways. I didn't tell you that before, but yes, that happened. Yeah. Anyway,
that's
so
awesome.
should you have
We did
friends
that the other day because she was like, I was like, well, Brindley, if you do it this way, you can actually listen to more in a shorter amount of time. She's like, okay.
All for that, yeah. Okay, so if you should have friends of the opposite sex or not, we think probably not. It's obviously a case-by-case situation. Marriage, you have to take all the things in account. You want to honor your marriage. honor your spouse first and foremost, and then kind of build off of that and see what what are the things that you want in your marriage or for your marriage, and then move on from there and see if it's right for you.
Yep.
Hopefully this was helpful to you guys. We're going to do more of these. I don't think I'm going to have to edit this one too much, so that was good. Good job, babe. We out. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that episode. We had a lot of fun making it. And so our goal is never to offend you with the things that we talk about, but just to bring some of these topics to light and how my husband and I approach these conversations and talk about it and kind of navigate through it as a third-party perspective for you. And of course, that means you still have the option to do what you need to do for you and your relationship, because at the end of the day, it's yours. So we hope that you enjoy these conversations that we're going to continue to have. Hope that you leave a rating and a review on iTunes. I would so appreciate that, and it would help me so much. Thank you guys for listening. Can't wait to catch you on the next episode.